Mapleton, North Dakota, has been sentenced after a crash in Becker County. 35-year-old Andrew Drager of Mapleton was sentenced yesterday. Court documents say the crash happened last February when Drager reportedly took a curve at a fast speed and then crashed into some trees and a large rock, injuring his passenger.
He was initially charged with 2 counts of felony criminal vehicular operation. One of those charges was dismissed, and he pled guilty to the other as part of a plea agreement. He has reportedly been sentenced to 90 days in jail. To read more on this story, as well as what the passenger's mother wrote into the court, head to valleynewslive.com.